spin.
Please spin.
Please spin. You can spin that one.
How about this? Please don't touch. And then walk back out here on the
36. So you can spin.
I read the market.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Okay. Hi. Great time.
Yeah.
I'm good.
You saw their work in the Brooklyn Miniaturists pop-up exhibit. We're the Center for Brooklyn History, so it gives me special joy to say that we're making history tonight. This is the only time that 3 Brooklyn Miniaturists have exhibited together. I know that, in fact, it's the first time that one of them has exhibited at all. So it's really a special moment here, and I'm so happy to be here. I'll try a bit. I have to say I want to thank my CDH colleagues, Laura Michael, Zenobia Pointer, Janala Calendar, better known, we are the mighty mini team for making the pop-up happen, and special thanks to Leela and Lauren and the folks at BPL's marketing department for the record-breaking fast turnaround, designing and printing the labels and the graphics. And of course, I want to thank the artists for their work, for loaning us their work. In a moment, I will invite Danny, Aaron, and Jack to join me on stage. But first, I want to invite all of you to linger after the conversation, enjoy the exhibition, have a glass of bubbly water or wine, talk to the artists informally. On that note, I have a few kind of obvious but important requests. Tempting as it may be, please don't touch the works that are not in cases. Please don't leave glasses or napkins on the tables where there are pieces. We have ample garbage cans for that. And please know that Aaron's work can be spun. They're all on Lazy Susans. They're wonderful dioramas. We want to see them in 360, but turn them gently and carefully. Finally, I'll share that if you're interested in buying one of Jack's pieces, the CBH shop has a special arrangement. Speak to the folks behind the shop counter to learn how to order his works in time for his holidays. Danny's pieces are not for sale here, but you can explore his store on his website, dannycortesnyc.com. And Aaron's pieces are his treasures, not for sale, although I can't stop from trying to persuade him otherwise. So now it's my joy to tell you a bit about these artists and invite them to join me up here on stage. I'll start with Jack. Jack Giambanco grew up and lives in Gravesend, Brooklyn. He worked for many years as a graphic artist at the He began making miniatures during the pandemic as a way to pay tribute to beloved local Brooklyn businesses that were struggling or closing down. His first piece was A&F's Italian bookstore on Avenue X. He now has created replicas of dozens of stores and businesses, each with a story from Roland Roaster to Brennan and Carr. Danny Cortes. Danny was born and raised and still lives in Bushwick. He too started making miniatures during the COVID pandemic. He captures the gritty, graffiti-covered street sites of the 80s and 90s. And with a few simple postings on social media, his work absolutely caught on fire. Now he's showing at Art Basel in Miami. I know this because it's been hard to nail down. He's been crisscrossing this country. In September, he was featured, as many of you may have read, in a profile published by the New York Times. The very first item that he made was an icebox. And a version of that is on display here tonight. So, Danny. And Aaron Kinard has lived in Prospect Heights for 45 years. Like Jack and Danny, who backed into this, he makes extraordinarily detailed dioramas, which sometimes tap into his memories of the past and other times make political statements about today. Aaron taught himself how to do all of this on YouTube. He, too, found that the indoor time during COVID allowed him to focus and perfect his craft. In his piece, a detail that is amazing. Brooklyn, which you can see out here, the cobblestone street is made from 732 mini bricks laid by hand by tweezers. Please help me welcome Aaron. So, wow. I'm so thrilled to see you all here. Thank you so much. You know, there's just so much to ask. I just shared that all three of you started on this path in life in earnest just within the last few years, really. And I'd like to find out a little bit about who you were, what your life was beforehand. So let's go start with you, Aaron. Let's start that way and go this way. What were you doing before you became a miniaturist artist, and how did that thing happen?
That is a hard question. What was I doing beforehand was trying to absorb life itself. Listening, learning, looking at the world, seeing how it works, having a knowledge that we're all connected in one way or another. I find it a longing or a passion to try to identify with anything and everything that's happening. And so through that combination, and prior to COVID, I tried to tap in on things that I could not control. And the anger that comes out in you, the disbelief, the inhumanity that we do to each other, it hurts me. And how can I relieve it? And I found that tapping into my art was very therapeutic for me. And I'm just amazed that people can identify with it also.
Thank you. I just want to follow up and say, when did your art become your art? What were,
I had first enjoyed photography. And doing photography, I wanted to know the old school photography. So I wanted to know how to develop film. I see people take their iPhones and they click, 1,000 pictures, and then they switch through it till they get the best one. I don't really call that photography. You have to know your instrument, you have to know your tools. So I took some night classes at ICP, International Center of Photography. And they taught me how to develop film, work in the dark room, and what aperture were and whatnot. But at the time I did that, digital was coming out. So there was a new flow of things with the digital cameras. And if you use the digital cameras, they take amazing pictures. And so then I decided to start digital. And I would go around Brooklyn and throughout taking photos, photographs of people. My specialty, what I like, are either portraits or landscapes. And I just didn't want to take pictures, I wanted to go to another level. So what I decided to do was to learn how to take, I was fascinated with HDR photographs. And that's, HDR stands for high dynamic range photography. And what it is, in short, you take an overexposed picture, an underexposed, and a normal photograph. Then you take it through Photoshop, digital, and splice them together. And as a result, you get immense detail of everything. Nothing is blown out. Everything is right there in the photography, in the photograph. I went to the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens, just testing my art, trying to work it, and I took a photograph of the Japanese gardens there. I put it online on a social media site, just so my friends or photographers could see it. About a year later, and this was during the pandemic, I get a message on Facebook saying, "Are you the person who took this photo?" And of course I did, and they said, "Well, can I publish it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what is this? They want money, or it's a scam." We exchanged email addresses. Lo and behold, 6 months later, my photograph that was HDR was published. Who was the publisher? National Geographic. So I find that if you pursue something you love and just do it because you love it and you're putting your heart into it, you're not doing it for other people, you're doing it for your enjoyment, and you're not half-assed doing it. You're trying to understand the art of it. Things come to you. And that's precisely what has happened with my miniatures. I do it for the love of it and for the passion that's in me. And you all are here today. Thank you.
That's beautiful. So Danny, tell us about your journey, how you came to be sitting on this stage with all of us.
Brooklyn, make some noise. Wow, before doing miniature art, you guys read the New York Times article? Ooh, yeah, it was a very dark time. Middle of a divorce, fighting a case in court for doing a couple of things I'm not supposed to be doing, but you know, we're human. And lost everything in there. You know, back at mom's house in a little corner. I played with the miniatures before the pandemic, but I wasn't so serious. So, you know, now I got all this self-diagnosed depression, anxiety, and everything because it's just a close life.
Right.
And, you know, I was going through a rough time. And now that I'm in my mom's house with everybody, so all the friends, with the champagne was overflowing and the money was coming in, you know, when you turn the light, the roaches scatter, and that's exactly what happened when I'm fighting this case, you know. So, fast forward, now I'm with the depression, I lost everything, I'm in the middle of a divorce, now we're in a pandemic, now it's even darker now I don't even want to get out of bed. So when I finally decided to get out of the bed, I became a chef for a week. I've been watched every Netflix, I think, show. And then I stumbled, cleaning the room, I stumbled across these tools that I didn't put to use in a while. So, and when I first started making that miniature, that feeling is like, it's why I'm here today. It's not the money, it was never the fame, it was that feeling that I kept chasing. So it was like a drug. It was like this feeling, I want that feeling. I don't think about my depression no more, the depression that I diagnosed myself with. All these excuses that I had of not moving forward, the miniatures made me surpass that. And I felt so good, I wanted to continue. I couldn't wait to wake up in the morning, I'm sleeping, my mind is still working, and I just want to finish the piece. And I just wanted to get better and get better. And I worked on in a homeless shelter, you know, so because I had to kill the ego and go get a minimum wage job because I needed to pay bills. So there was no excuse to finish doing the miniatures. It felt good. My office was an out-of-order bathroom. I sat down in this place, waited for the walkie-talkie to ring so I could go clean this bathroom, this hallway, or whatever. And I kept practicing with these miniatures, so it made me feel better. I'm practicing, I'm getting better and better. And one post changed my life. The power of social media gave a broader reach instead of showing my friends and family, which I was okay with that. But now I got to show the world, and we're here today, and I'm blessed.
I mean, yes. I want to say, you know, both of you, when I'm listening to you, it feels like you discovered that you were artists in your soul. And it may have taken a while to figure that, you know, to know that, but that what you really in your soul are artists.
I took the COVID, even though there was so much going on and a lot of lives were, you know, it happened what happened, but I took it personally, and it was like a message from God saying, I'm gonna reset the world for you so that you have no excuse to wake up in the morning. There's no excuse to practice on the craft. There's no excuse. So this is what's going on for you. So I took it personal, and I said, I can't bail out now, so I gotta do what I gotta do because he reset the world for me. So it's more personal. Sorry, guys.
Jack, let's hear your story.
Well, for me, I guess it's kind of similar, a little different. Pandemic was going on. It was such a depressing time for me. I wake up each day and think, you know, what can I do today that's a little different? I was working as a graphic designer. Like a lot of people, we got laid off or got work reduced, so my workload was very reduced. I was working at home. It was very depressing and lonely. I walk outside and I see these stores that we love, either having a hard time, struggling, or they were closing up, and it seemed like the whole world was ending. For me, it was a very lonely time, and then I had an idea. I was walking past one of the stores and I said, you know, what if I use some of my 3D modeling skills to create these little miniatures and show the world on YouTube, on Instagram, and show the world what I think is a way how we can remember our past and keep these stores going for the ones that still remain. So I worked every day, I studied so hard, I raised the level of my craft each day to be able to produce these. And when I created my first one, I would just sit there, I'd be laying in my bed looking at it, and my heart would just sing and say, wow, I really feel like I'm at this place. It feels real. Let me post it online and see. So as soon as I posted it, it was just wild. People would say, oh, I remember that place. I met my significant other there. My parents took me there. Thank you so much for making this model. And it was just something that touched my heart. So I woke up every day too. I couldn't wait to wake up in the morning to start my next miniature, start the next model, only so I can see the people's reaction to it and see that the model has brought them joy. And that's here we are today.
I think this may be the only positive COVID story. I wanted to ask a little bit, so you know, I've been watching people looking at your works for the last couple of days. This pop-up exhibit is up, it's for a week. And there's a sequence of reactions. The first is memories. Memories. You guys are tapping, people are like, oh, I remember, oh my God, that looks just like, or, I went to, and but then the second is always, oh my God, wow, how, look at those details, how did they do that? And I would love to talk a little bit about your processes. I feel like you all have, you have insect eyes, have a lot of angles and stuff. You see things that people don't see, Tell me a little bit about what details capture you, and as you picked very different subjects in a way, and been able to capture them in enormous detail. And I'm wondering, what attracts you? Why your works are what they are? So, Dan, let's start with you this time.
Okay, I'm attracted to rust, if you have seen my works. So rust for me, tells a story. Some weather changes have to happen. So I think that as a person, you go through changes. So from the weather, the rain, that drip on that metal gate, the way it drips and the glow of the orange, the way it expands and it gets darker and cruddier and gritty, that tells a story. So they say that the eagle, after 30 years or something, would go to a mountain and pluck his feathers off, break the beak just to reborn himself. So I think weather and it's just beauty. So, we just gotta stop sometimes and look, even if you're in this situation, the situation is the surrounding. Even if you're in that situation, look for the positive, look for the beauty in it. So the details come from this experience, life experience, and my daily walks in New York City.
Jack, so what are the details that you see that you probably don't when you walk down the street or look at a building?
Well, I guess it's kind of hard for me to know that, but what I do is I kind of step back, I take a whole big picture of it, and I see what strikes me the most. If it's a certain awning or a certain sign in the window that I like to bring out, and then I'll start sketching it down on paper, and then I'll sit on the computer and I'll start 3D modeling it. I'll do the gates, the windows, the doors, and as I'm putting it together, it's, I got all these different pieces, and as it's coming together, it's starting to come alive. So, I guess for me, I'll try to capture the spirit of the building. And it could be anything. It could be any part of that sticks out the most that I think people would relate to. And I kind of go by, take it naturally. I don't force it. Whatever I feel, I do. It's all based on feelings. And I drop it down, and once I make that model, and I show it, and it's usually, so far, every single one of them has been able to capture that spirit. So.
Great. Aaron?
I can identify with both of them. It's a mood. The mood strikes me first. When I'm walking down the street, I'm noticing everything. The trash can on the corner, the can out in the gutter. I'm watching how people walk through the streets. The colors are amazing, and how the colors blend in. Old rust, rusty, all these click in, and then it's followed by a mood or a feeling that I have, and that moves me to make a piece. I don't sit down and say, I'm going to make a piece that looks like this or that. I try to let the art flow through me, and I won't stop until my piece breathes. If it does not breathe, it's not ready. And just to give you an example of that is during the COVID, during Black Lives Matter, I wanted to go out and take photographs. I am a native of Washington, D.C., and I remember the death of Martin Luther King. I remember the riots in the neighborhoods, the burning of the buildings. I remember the mass movements of people of all colors and religion standing up for civil rights as a small kid. And so when I saw the Black Lives Matter movement, and nothing else reminded me of this, and they were out by the tens of thousands. It was during COVID, we did not have a vaccine. I am in my 60s, and I could not go out and risk taking photos or the history of it, or demonstrating, showing my support. So what I did was moved by an art piece, and you'll see the art piece there, I Can't Breathe. And if you look at it from the front, you see a beautiful facade of the building, the front of the building, a nice calm garden, but look into the windows. And I pulled out two famous photos of lynchings. In the wider building, you see, it looks like a group of people out on a Saturday night, and they're smiling and laughing, and what's hanging in the background? A burnt body. If you look in another window, a man of color is hanging from a tree. And it's kind of disturbing, but you think everything is peaceful, but it really isn't. Then spin it around, and it's shaped just like a tombstone. It says, I Can't Breathe 2020. And that's my contribution to the cause of justice, because I could not physically go out and do it myself. So things like that, the movement, the mood that I had, it develops and works into it until it can breathe.
Let me get into a little bit like how you do this, you know, like without getting into super detail. I think that you all three do it slightly differently. So, you know, what do you do, Jack? How do you make these?
Like I said before, I start with a sketch, and I go to a computer, and I do computer-aided design. So I'll 3D model each part of the building, and then I have a series of 3D printers that I'll put different parts on. I'll put the awning on one, the roof on one, the base on one, and then I'll start with these guys do. I'll start assembling. The pieces and putting it together as from my original sketch. And from that point on, it's just a matter of bonding the pieces together. And I use no paints. It's all colored bioplastic. It's all based on corn. And photographs, decals on my windows.
Cool. Danny?
Yeah, I start with tons of music. Starts off with music. My daily walks, tons of pictures, tons of reference photos. Depending if I want to trick your mind into believing that this water bottle is the actual one, I'm doing research or not. So starts with music. I get in the zone, go in the studio, and just have fun. At the end of the day, it's fun.
So what are the materials that are there?
Tons of chipboard, XPS foam. I use a lot of super glues, anything that's laying around me, basically, shoe boxes, anything that I can convert to, you know, that could make something out of it. Trash, make some amazing art, you know. And then now I'm experimenting with some kits. Now that I'm gonna get a little for a couple of pieces, so I could get some kits that I've been working with. You work with kits, right?
Yes.
Yes, and I've been experimenting with that. Now I can get really detailed with that, but you'd be surprised what you could do with a paper clip and a gun.
I want to say when we got Danny's two pieces, and you know, I'm holding CBGBs, and I'm like, this is so light. I'm afraid of crunching it by mistake. It's made out of
XPS foam. The canopy is a shower curtain. So that's how my mind works. I'm outside. I feel like I'm determined. So I see the world like a grid. Like, okay,
Same thing here. I try to use, and I'm leaning more towards sustainable materials to use in building my models. If you look at the home one, you'll see the roof and different parts of the roof, and you see a pipe tubing like an air conditioner on a roof. And all it is a bent straw, and I just bent it and painted it and put it together. I go to the park and I'll pick up branches and dirt to make the soils on the ground, and I try to use a lot of that. Also, I use washable resin, which when I'm making my models and they're resin based, it's a less toxic material to work with when I'm making my projects. But like you guys, anything around you can use: cardboard, chipboard, whatever works.
And lots of paints.
Lots of paints, acrylics mainly.
Yeah.
Me too, goodness.
All right, so I want to know what your workspaces look like. What does it look like?
My workspace looks like a dumpster. I try. You know, I try to make it as comfortable as possible that I can swing the chair, I can grab here, I can grab here with this with just a table. No, I just have tons of material. I never want to throw nothing out, so that's why I'm getting cluttered. So, yeah.
That stuff comes in handy, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. The trash bags is actually trash, it's miniature. I just take the trash bag, cut it up. But actually, the scraps that I use for that piece become the trash of the art piece.
Jack, what is your workspace look like?
Computers, iPads, a bunch of 3D printers, and my bed, because it's in my apartment. I wake up to this, it's amazing, I love it. And a lot of art supplies all over the place, but I try to keep it as much as organized as possible.
That's the hard part.
On an 8x10 Brooklyn room, and it has everything in it cluttered. You've seen it, and that's how you work.
Very well organized, though.
Yes.
Everything in its space, in its place. What does it feel like when you see people reacting to your works? And you know, like is it like when people?
That's the best. That's the whole thing for me. I've seen people cry, laugh, smile, point at it, call their friends over, come and look at this. You got to see this. I can't believe it. Just joyous, kids, adults, it doesn't matter. When they see it, just everything changes. It takes you into a whole different world. When you look at one of my miniatures or one of their miniatures, it's like your whole world, everything disappears, all the bad disappears, and now you're in this fantasy world that anything can happen. It's beautiful and great. And that's what I love about it.
Danny, what is it? What you know, when you see people seeing your work, is it mind-blowing? What do you?
Yeah, it feels amazing because just 3 years ago, I'd rather be recognized for doing something good than be recognized as, hey, look at that thug, look at that hooligan. No, but I'm just kidding. But no, it feels amazing. It's just like Jack was saying, when people come to you and cry, just want to give you a hug, take a picture with you. I'm so grateful for that because where I come from, just a zero to the left, So, just having people that don't know me and the family and the people, it's just amazing. It makes you want to work more. It just makes you appreciate that you're part of something. And, if I could give you 2 seconds of nostalgia, I did my job. And that's what it all comes down to. It's just evoke emotion, giving someone a feeling, a memory. Just by looking at a piece, their mind is already wondering, a smell, a certain type of weather, a certain type of period in their life. And when your art does that, you're special. So,
Aaron?
Same thing, off the backboard of these guys. When people look at the art or they express interest in it, it's a humbling experience. To know that you created something that they can identify with or that they were moved by. And that's amazing, totally.
So I want to say, I have a couple more questions. then we're gonna open it up to your questions. We'll have a microphone that we'll bring around, so think you have questions for these guys. My question now is, what's percolating in there? What's next? What do you want, what do you want to do? What's the next one? What do you hope for?
Well, for me, it's like maybe a little different from these guys, but I start doing these stores, and then all these store owners find out, and I think they get jealous because they want one too. So I have a waiting list I'm going through, and I'm just going one by one doing theirs. But in the middle of that work, I like to do my own stuff. So there's a couple childhood places that I have in mind. I can't mention them now that are going to come. They're coming soon, but yeah.
I don't know if you mentioned too that, Jack, that you also have sort of thrown your hat into this ring full time.
Yes. This is it now. This is my full-time job.
Yeah, you too.
Making models every day, which is just a pleasure. I don't believe it. Do you believe it?
Lucky.
I don't believe it. So, and I reproduce them. I'm all about reproduction. I want to get this feeling out to as many people as possible. So with the 3D printers, I can do that, and just to try to make people feel good.
Okay, Danny, what's percolating?
Oh man.
What's your dream that you want to do next?
Oh my dream.
If there is one.
Well, if you guys know, I've been scaling up a lot. So I've been working doing set designs for music videos, podcasts, and we're in the works right now in a movie in Hollywood. So that's very exciting. Still negotiating, but it's gonna happen because Hollywood starts with miniatures. Star Wars, the White House got blown up in that movie, Independence Day. It was a miniature. You know how cool it is to get one of your miniatures blown up by Hollywood? I can't wait. But blow them up. But I'm scaling up, so get ready. Pay attention to my social media because I'm about to have a big surprise. I have a big surprise, and very, very soon. So. Yeah. December 15th, we're going to be dropping a sneaker with Nike. December 15th. Woodstack. We're going to drop a sneaker with Woodstack in collaboration with Nike on December 15th, so that's going to be cool.
Amazing. Aaron, what about you? I just want to say one thing about you too, because can I? That you've lived in Brooklyn 45 years, but you're moving.
Yeah.
And, does that mean you're going to change your subject matters? Or are you going to always be doing these urban scenes?
I just retired on Halloween. My partner and I, we bought a house in Pennsylvania in a small town of Spring Grove. And I know I'm long-winded, so I'll keep it short. In the midst now, I have a larger workspace. And what I am designing mentally now, you see, I like it dark. So we as New Yorkers, I found out during the 2016 election that I live in a bubble. That the whole world does not think like I do. So therefore, my next subject is living in a bubble and what's out of the bubble. To be continued.
I know everyone sees probably, the fame and success and all that story, but before the success, I just want to thank my fiance, Nada. She started to stand up, and she motivated me. You need that person to motivate you because without that, man, I tell you, if you have that motivation, you go far. Someone that's gonna be there and believe in you. That's the best support you need.
Did you know you Brooklyn so much?
I sure did, so that was born.
Yes, I never want to leave. If I leave it, I get depressed. If I go to Pennsylvania, it's dark, it's sad, I want to get back
I'm in my bubble in Brooklyn.
You know, because as I said at the beginning, your pieces are just, and they emanate love for Brooklyn. And it's reciprocated. People love them. You know, it's a wonderful kind of cycle that you've created with these pieces. So I think we have a microphone. Yeah. Anybody have a question? Okay. Cindy's got a mic back there, or Nancy. There's some up here. Also, by the way, if you guys have questions for each other, I'd be very curious to know what you want to know from each other. Unless it's like super, oh, I'm sorry. I gotta get a microphone.
Hi, I also grew up in Brooklyn. When I was a little girl, I had a dollhouse. I loved it. My brother did not. When my daughter was young, we found a dollhouse, and I loved collecting all the little things for her. And then when she didn't want it anymore, I didn't get rid of it. So this is my question, I think. So I've always liked miniatures, and I grew up with that. But one of you explained how you're walking down the street and you saw a closed store, and that got you inspired. But I still don't know how the other one, the other two, you did not grow up with dollhouses. Hopefully now, children can play with whatever they want to, whatever they, whatever gender they want to call themselves. But I don't think that was the case when you guys were younger. So, how did you go from photography to miniatures? I don't think I heard that. And you were a graphic designer, but something inspired you to go into miniatures and some
I was the guy at the store when I saw that store.
Okay, good.
For me, doing detailed work, I was always amazed at miniatures. If you ever go to like the show in Queens Botanical Gardens around this time and see the train show and see the miniatures there, they are amazing. And I was always amazed by miniatures, but they were always rural. They were always of farm scenes. They always had white people, and there were no people of color. And I wanted to I could not identify with that. Now, they are great, and that is their environment. I totally understand that. But I wanted to represent an urban environment, something that I knew. And I wanted to put that on scale and put it on a smaller scale and place people of color in it. If you look at my piece called Home, tell me if I'm talking too much. You'll see the neighborhood, and it's an exact representation of Prospect on Underhill, the building. And you will see only black people or brown people in that diorama. And when I moved there in the early 90s, that neighborhood was predominantly brown people. And so it reflects that in that diorama. So I wanted to reflect a part of people of color in these miniatures also.
Okay, for me, growing up in the 80s and watching Saturday morning cartoons or whatnot, and these companies would feed us these commercials, G.I. Joes, Transformers, Ninja Turtles, and always attracted to the background. And I'll tell my mom, can I get that building with the fire escape? And she's like, son, they don't sell none of that. That's because there's an artist that makes that for the commercial. I'm like, whoa, okay. So I would collect my cereal boxes and stack them up all together, and I paint miniature bricks, windows on them, and I would just escape for hours and hours and hours. And that's how far back I can remember as making miniatures. And again, attracted to Mr. Rogers. When that trolley would come around, that feeling like, oh, there it goes. And it's the intro. When you see the little group, dollhouse, but as from an early age, I knew that I didn't come from that world. You know, so I said, one of these days I might make a Mr. Rogers or Danny's Neighborhood or something. You know, but I you know, everyone here, we're adults, but I think we still kids in here. We're little children in here. And I believe we always attracted to something tiny, and like, I think that's cool, a building that's tiny. And, you know, when we kids, they give us toys to advance them and just wonder your imagination. So it all comes down to, that's how I got started.
Well, for me, I've always loved miniatures as a kid. It just, like I said before, it takes me back to a place. It kind of like changes my whole spirit and my whole outlook on life. As a kid, I had the He-Man Castle Grayskull, you know? Something like that. Not a dollhouse, but it was a Castle Grayskull, close enough. And you play with these little figures, and it just take you, just your imagination would go, and there would be no problem in the world. And ever since then, I just love miniatures. And you know, when I had this idea later in life, it was not exactly for the miniature, it was for the stores and the people. But how did I tie that in? It was something as a child that I loved. And it just gave me so much joy. So.
Great question, by the way.
How do you decide on scale? And do you like to work in the same scale, or do you like to not work in the same scale from one piece to the other?
Well, for me, I started my first one, so I based all of them on that scale. And I think about the person who's going to get them. I want them to have a whole collection of them, so I want to keep it at a size that's not overwhelming, and they can have a bunch on the shelf or on their desk. So for my scale, it's more of a smaller scale, something that you can collect and have many of.
I typically don't work on a scale. I like 118 and 112, which is dollhouse scale, but I'm open to everything. It's what I'm feeling that day, and when I did miniatures earlier, I did it for toy photography, toy action figure collectors. But then my art went to galleries, and it's like you don't need to be in no scale. So whatever I'm feeling that day, that's where the scale comes in.
And mine is HO scale, which is 1.87, and maybe one piece in there isn't that scale, but I like to keep them all the same size because they can be all put together and it doesn't look abnormal, but it's consistent.
We were speaking of figures, and several of these. Oh, sorry. We were speaking earlier about figures, and several of these pieces have these incredibly tiny little figures, and they look absolutely real. And I was wondering, what's your process with that? How do you make these figures?
The painting is the details on that. And if you ever look at any of those figures that you have, and when you were at my house, I have a collection right now that I'm working on, and I have like 150 now of those figures. And each one are different. Each one is wearing different colors, different clothes, and I like to make them as realistic as possible. And that is done with just shading and lighting on my figures to try to make them come alive. Hopefully I answered that.
The majority of miniatures is about the painting. It's all in the painting because I could trick you into thinking it's a concrete and it's a piece of foam. So it's a certain textures you use, like rolling a piece of aluminum foil on the foam will create these textures, and different shades, different dry brushing on the foam will create a concrete texture and will make you think it's a concrete. So it's a lot has to do with the way you paint.
Being that you guys do some, something so similar? Did you know did each of you know each other before? Is tonight the first time you're meeting each other? I mean, it's so similar.
I knew Jack through, I heard of Jack through New Nico. Yeah, New Nico.
Oh, we've never met.
We never met it. This is the first time we all three meet in person.
We were like, wow,
Yeah.
we got
We
this
knew
gift
of each
somehow.
other.
Yeah.
We knew of each other, but this is this beautiful space that brought us all together here.
It's amazing how all three of us during the pandemic, and we had issues.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we were
yeah.
given this gift. I think of it as a gift, so we were all three of us given a gift, and we appreciate it. So.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about the tools or instruments that you use to achieve the kind of precision in these tiny little spaces?
As far as me, and I'll hand it off to you guys next, for me, it's all digital. So I create the textures and everything on the computer, and I have the 3D printers, which are little robots, that'll go out and run my code and make those textures for me. Now these guys use a little different method. They're taking foam and they're rolling different materials on it, and I guess you guys can expand on that a little more.
Yeah, you'd be surprised what you could do when you find stuff in the street. You grab a couple of rocks, throw some foam in there, some tiny pieces of foam that you're gonna glue manipulate as brick. You toss them in a bucket full of screws and stones, and you shake that up. It's gonna give it a nice texture. That's one thing. Different washes, like watered down browns, blacks, greens, will make a piece of wood look very, very old. So on and so forth, yeah.
Same.
Yeah. A lot of washes, right?
You don't feel like talking?
Oh, no. I'll let you have some. If you look at any of my paintings, I will not use a solid color. Building may look yellow. If you look at my paintings, you will see different blends of colors. Anytime I try to use colors or I'm painting, I'm blending the colors first so they can't be duplicated and they come out a unique color that I don't write it down so I can't even duplicate it.
You know what I do? If I'm looking for a certain color, I go to the actual location. If I'm replicating an actual building, and I'll chip a piece of the paint. And I'll take it to the studio and I try to match it. I'm there like a bad scientist and I'm putting colors here, splashing all over it. It's like, get it?
Yeah.
Yes.
She had one over here.
And also,
Hi, thank you. Hi, I just so admire all of your work, and regretfully I haven't had a chance to look yet, but did you say it's up for a week? The work is up for a week? Okay, great. So kind of a dual question, but one, when you were speaking about the miniature people, do you cast them yourself? Do you like mold them yourself, or do you, with some of the materials, do you start with like things you purchase and then you make them your own? The same thing like with, you can buy like a little furniture and then paint it or that kind of thing.
All my miniatures are made from resin and they're 3D printed, but I will buy the file. You have artists that will create humans or take pictures of humans and then digitize them. And they will sell these people for this digital file. And so I will buy digital files of realistic human beings, and then I will program it through my computer and my machine to print it at any size I want. And after it's printed, they don't come out in color. And then after I process it, then I will hand paint them.
Cool, thank you. And my other question is just how do you preserve then the finished pieces? Do you encase them in plexiglass, or do you have any consideration of that, or is it kind of then just makes it too precious or something?
I have, on my dioramas out there, I have them in cases right there. But there's a laminate sealer you can put on each piece or model or spray on that will keep the paint and keep it intact and the color intact also.
So I think one thing that I've found pretty unique about all three of your experiences is how they started during COVID. And that was a very different time, to develop and, understand your art. I think coming out of COVID, we all have had our lives changed in different ways, coming back into the world where people are in these stores, in these buildings. How has sort of moving out of COVID and that transition, how has that changed your arts?
Well, it opened up the world. It just opened up the floodgates to it. Before that, it's just you and the computer, you're posting online. But now you can take your piece and put it in a store or bring it here and have other people see it and just like totally changes everything. I'm so glad that we're out of it. So happy.
Same, yeah.
Good night. Y'all all three said y'all have models that y'all built. Have y'all ever thought about building a model and then selling it and having it actually built? Like the buildings that y'all do projects?
Yes, because that's one of my dreams, to make a miniature that will be here for the rest of, be here for forever. And so I'm thinking about it. I've been doing a little research. Should I go to architecture school and get my degree? And yes, I would love a building named after me that I designed. So they say, plant the tree, have a kid, may have a building, right? So, write a book.
Write a book, build a building instead of building projects, If you put together a building and a construction company put it up, it'll be something that'll stay in Brooklyn.
Absolutely.
Enjoy. Good night.
Yeah.
So, thank you. I think we probably have time for one more question, if there is one in the audience. There we go.
I'd like to know whether you all work on several things at once, or do you like to work on only one thing and get that right, or do you leave something until you're inspired to finish it?
For me, I like to work on only one thing and focus on that one building. There's times when you get pressured to work on many things at once and everybody calling you, but I try to focus on that one building.
Yeah, sometimes I'm all over the place. And like my good friend Jeff Enriquez says, try not to feel like you're in a conveyor belt factory type setting, which, I'm blessed to be having all these commissions, yes. But sometimes you gotta release this thing out of you so you can get back to that. And I do that. I'll stop the commissions for a day, go into something that I wanna do, release that out of my chest and go back to work. Yeah.
I'm honored to be with these two guys. I'm not pressured at all, nor am I in demand. So I work on one project at a time, and I don't hop around, and I focus on that until it breathes.
Yes, until it breathes.
So we're gonna, I want to invite everybody to look at the work and have something to drink. There's Perrier, there's wine, but since we're going to look at the work and talk to you guys, let's end by having you each maybe talk about one piece. It can be a piece that's meaningful to you. It can be a piece that didn't work for you. It can be a piece that is here or not here, but just a little bit about a feeling you have about one piece.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the CBGB that's here, and you already know CBGB is iconic. And I just want you, when you look at this piece, try to envision yourself in the 70s and 80s, 90s, or wherever you was at the moment when you remember yourself as a fan of CBGBs, or you know how many superstars came out of CBGBs in New York City? So just look at the details, look at the posters. There's little Easter eggs in there. And the icebox as well is something that just is a signature of mine, and it's just my daily surroundings. You know, everywhere, every corner in Brooklyn was that icebox right there to say hello to me every morning. And so that's what's very dear to me. So enjoy.
For me, it would be Roll the Roaster, which is one of my favorite places to eat. And yeah, you gotta check it out. It's like when you're a kid and you live in that neighborhood, you're at Roll the Roaster every weekend, you know. And when I created that piece, it was just amazing how many people felt the same way and contacted me over that one piece. So Roll the Roaster would be my number one, I would say.
I think the piece called Brooklyn is one of my favorite. Please turn it around and look at the back. There are 4 brownstones, and there's 4 individual neighborhoods. It took me forever to create. Please look at it.
It's incredibly privilege it's been to talk to you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. Enjoy.